Now let's move on. I'm going to move on to the courts and all the blocking and the injunctions that are being filed against some of the executive orders from the president. The quick reaction is, okay, here we go, more obstruction. You know, they're interested in stopping anything that Trump wants to do, and that may be true. That may be true. However, I don't want you to lose sight of that these are injunctions. These are temporary injunctions. They aren't able to dictate with that broad of a brush and give a ruling on this type of governmental administration. They're not able to. The fact of the matter is, if they can't, if the president doesn't have purview over spending outside of the country, and mostly we're talking about USAID right now. I know there's some other issues with the information from folks from the Treasury and all that stuff and the payment system, and then as well as the federal workers, but we're talking about foreign aid. And I think they smartly picked this agency first. And I think that was one of the big, besides the waste, but it was one of the big reasons why they picked it, because they needed to test the waters. They had to know that this was coming, the Trump administration. They had to know that there was going to be people that were going to, no matter what it was, arbitrarily try to stop it. Now, the district courts, again, they are hearing pinpoint accurate incidents in cases. They don't do this stuff. They don't paint like a broad brush and just stop something and tell something to go back and do it when they haven't heard the case. They don't do that. This is a temporary injunction so that they can take a better look at it. Okay? This was going to happen anyway. It needs to be fought in the courts, just like the birthright stuff. These things are initiated so that these type of discussions and rulings can occur a lot of times. Sometimes they'll just go through. Most of the time they don't. Most of the time people are going to argue in the courts. Now, I know you're going to hear a lot of Congress people on the left side of the aisle start to say, well, they should have brought it to us. We could have went line by line. That takes too long. Takes too long. The problem I have with this is the judiciary, the branch of government, they cannot decide what another branch of government, how it is operated within. That's the problem I have. Because if that's the case, then what powers do the president have? Foreign aid is exclusively his purview. Now, the allocation of funds and who gets it and that stuff, yes, that goes through Congress. But once it's there, how it is spent inside the executive branch, that's up to the president, especially foreign aid. If it's not in the interest, he should be able to get rid of it. Now, the federal workers, it's a pretty tough sell. It's a pretty tough sell with the federal workers. They're not being fired. They're being asked to leave, and here's your buyout. You don't have to take it. All you got to do is come back to work. You got to come to work. There's no one in the world that's going to say, unless there's some exemption due to medical circumstance or hardship circumstance, that someone is not going to have to go to work if their employer wants to be on location work. So, yeah, that's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. They're trying to stop this or extend the amount of time to let these folks think about taking that fork in the road, whether they're going to resign, take the buyout, which I thought was generous. But back to the foreign aid. If the president is not able to decide what programs can be cut within his own executive branch, then he has virtually no power. And I don't think that's what the founding fathers envisioned. They wanted to be equal and separate. So this being weaponized against the other is absolutely ridiculous. I understand why it's got to happen, but I don't believe they think they're going to win any of this. I think they're just obstructing. And they're fooling everybody if they believe that they're going to be 100% cooperative and listen to all this stuff in the House or the Senate. It just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. And then on top of that, the amount of waste and where it's going is a huge issue. This is not going to go away. The American people are not going to allow it. And I'll tell you why. Not only are they tired of paying too many taxes when they realize this money's not going where it's supposed to go and could come back to the American people, but they're tired of these type of funds not going to the folks in the United States who need it. And we're going to talk about another incident that's going on internationally where the president has stopped funding. But when you see the people for the last 5 months in North Carolina and Western Tennessee or Eastern Tennessee suffering, having nowhere to live, the roads not being even started yet. When you see all these things going on, and then you hear that hundreds of millions of dollars are going to all these other cultural type things, it's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. They're going to need $250 billion to rebuild California properly. $250 billion. Now, almost half or a third of that can come just from USAID. Think about that. It's completely unacceptable. So we're going to see how this plays out in the courts. I think some of these things are going to start to fall into line, and most people are, some we're going to lose, some you're going to win. But this foreign money, I think, and then the federal workers not coming to work, I think those are two hills that they're not willing to die on. Because first of all, once they start talking about these things line by line, it's going to be a bloodbath when it comes to the folks who are getting that money, because there's no way it's going to where it's supposed to be going.